Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is back tonight, so I thought I'd do a refresher video on the Inhumans. The back half of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2 is going to be all about explaining who their culture, their society are. The Inhumans that you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the TV shows and the movies, are going to be a little bit different from what they are in the comics, so I'll try to explain what the difference is. But I'm going to start with their original origin story from the comics. They suffer from the same problem that a lot of big Marvel characters have. They belong to a group of people whose origin is tied to another group that Marvel no longer has the IP for the films and TV shows. So let's get started. The characters were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, so totally expect a Stan Lee cameo in 2019 whenever the movie comes. They appeared for the first time in Fantastic Four number 45. In that issue, Stan Lee introed most of who would become the royal family, but at the time, the Inhumans were just these few characters. There was Black Bolt, Crystal, Medusa, Gorgon, Karnak, Lockjaw, and Triton. The plot of some of those early Stan Lee stories was kind of whimsical, but it was the swinging 60s, which I know sounds kind of like a Spider-Man joke, but you get the idea. You know, the characters were really interesting, but sometimes some of the story beats were a little bit funny. So the first time we see them, Johnny Storm is getting stood up for a date, and as he's grumbling his way walking back to the Baxter building, he sees a mysterious redhead in an alleyway who turns out to be Crystal. Mystified, he tries to follow her, shows her his powers in an alleyway, which isn't a euphemism for pulling his pants down. If he did that today, he would totally get arrested. Let's go to this dark alleyway, and I'll show you something really special. Crystal reveals that she also has special powers, introduces her special dog, Lockjaw. He opens a portal, and Crystal takes Johnny Storm to her home. Nowadays, this would be a story that parents would show their kids to tell them why you don't go home with strangers. So Johnny Storm gets to see Attilan for the first time. That's the Inhumans' secret city that's cloaked from view. Across their history in the comics, it's moved around in terms of its location relative to Earth, but initially it started on the moon. Here's where things get a little bit funny. Johnny Storm meets the rest of the royal family and realizes that he's seen Medusa as part of the Frightful Four. They're like an evil version of the Fantastic Four. So remember, this is issue number 45 when we're seeing them for the first time. Medusa appeared in issue number 36 in an evil team-up called the Frightful Four. I think what probably ended up happening is Stan Lee liked her character so much that he wanted to make her an Inhuman, but had to find a way to explain how she could be in that team and also be an Inhuman. So the official explanation became that she had amnesia, quote-unquote, while she was fighting with the Frightful Four. Stan Lee has a long history of moving characters around in terms of, what their stories are, which teams they belong to. Sometimes it creates some continuity errors. Nowadays, what Marvel does is they just create like earth-shattering universe events, like the Battle World stuff that's happening. So after that first appearance, the Inhumans just kind of bounced around a couple of different titles until they got their own title in 1975. It only ran for about 12 issues. That trend continued for a little while. They would just get limited runs from time to time. So they got another one in 1998, then a different one in 2000, then again in 2003 and 2007. So as you can see, they've been kind of like this weird little group of characters that Marvel brings out every once in a while. But historically, they were never popular enough to sustain their own ongoing title like the bigger Marvel characters. That might change whenever the movie comes out though. Movie sales always boost Marvel's comic sales. After that first Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man came out, sales of Iron Man comics shot through the roof. The lore of Inhumans is really cool too, but like a lot of Stan Lee characters, he introduces the characters first, and then like many issues later, he'll flesh out their backstory. Originally, their backstory was tied to the Kree-Skrull War. The Kree were looking for a weapon to use against the Skrulls, so they spent millennia genetically tampering with humans on Earth. Eventually, they abandoned the project after a prophecy predicted that an Inhuman would rise and destroy the Supreme Intelligence, who failed to appear in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I know we're all hoping to see more Kree in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but it's not confirmed. So while all this Kree-Skrull War stuff was going on, the Inhumans over time developed their own internal society. The biggest part of their culture was based on genetic engineering and this rigid caste structure. It dictated what jobs you could have, who you could marry, so naturally by design, the most powerful Inhumans were members of the royal family. And they are very xenophobic, which is why even after the Kree abandoned them, they continued to keep their city hidden. Black Bolt is a member of the Illuminati and appears in the Avengers a lot, but Crystal has historically been their biggest ambassador in terms of crossover characters. She's been a member of Fantastic Four, and she was a member of the Avengers for a long time. Medusa to a lesser extent too. There was like a very Romeo and Juliet thing going on with Johnny Storm and Crystal for a long time, so that was like a way to bridge their cultures in the comics. For the most part, they are allies with the heroes of Earth, but they still have their own agenda. I mean, it's like Namor and Black Panther. They both serve with the Illuminati, but their first priority is always to their own people. So let's move into Terrigenesis. That is the foundation for their society and the process by which they activate their powers. So taking in the mists and getting powers isn't what makes someone an Inhuman. That's something that's passed down through genetics. So there are Inhumans walking around that have not taken in the mist, that don't have special powers. But in order to take advantage of the mists, you do have to have those Inhuman genetic markers. The TV show kind of explored this, where like Skye, Trip, and Reyna all took in the mist, but Trip did not have Inhuman DNA, so it killed him and gave powers to Skye and Reyna. The TV show has really simplified the process by which Terrigenesis happens, and how they find these other Inhuman people. They've kind of tied it to the Kree, but I don't know how much they're going to explain that, because the Kree are largely a group that show up in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, so they might keep them there. Most of what we see on the TV show is just going to focus on the Inhumans living on Earth in secret groups, so I'm not expecting to see Attilan or any of the royal family. What I'm hoping is that they weave the idea of the Inhumans living on Earth into Age of Ultron, Civil War, and the rest of the movies, obviously building up to the actual Inhumans movie. Nothing's been confirmed, but I know there are a lot of questions about Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver's powers. As far as we know right now, their powers flow from the Mind Gem, so they're slightly different from the Inhumans, so I'm not going to call them Inhumans. They have confirmed a few Inhuman characters that they've cast for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. already. They're minor characters. There are some people that appear in the comics, but I'm just going to wait for them to appear in episodes before I talk about them. So like tonight, if we meet any new characters, I'll just explain that in my episode video. There's all kinds of cool stuff that we could talk about, like the relationships within the royal family, like Black Bolt's evil brother Maximus the Mad. He has a son with Medusa named Ahura. Just in general, Marvel gonna save all the best stuff for the movies. That's not coming out till July 2019. I know that's a long ways off. The interesting thing is that movie is coming out after Infinity War Part 2, which I think is kind of weird. So Inhumans is right now the last movie in Phase 3. So here's my big question for you guys. Which Inhumans from the comics do you want to see on the TV show? I know we're all hoping for the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel, but I don't think that's going to happen. Right now they're really pushing Skye and Reyna as the two main characters. They're like two sides of the same coin. Reyna, who's spent her entire life trying to become her true self, learn about her heritage, and Skye, who wants absolutely nothing to do with it. So now, like, you have two characters that are going to be exploring their new powers and their relationship to their people. That's like the main story for the second half of the season, exploring the culture of the Inhumans and watching them develop their powers. The interesting thing about Reyna is that she got what she wanted, but because her transformation physically altered her so much, she's going to wind up in this Mystique type situation, like Mystique from X-Men. People will probably look down on her appearance as a deformity. So for her, it's like an evil genie situation. Your wish was granted, but what you got isn't exactly what you asked for. So don't forget, new episode starts tonight. Be sure to subscribe to get it. I'll post it after the episode airs. And there is a new Avengers trailer coming on Thursday, so I'll do a new breakdown video for that. I'll probably do another bonus Avengers video too. While you guys wait for all that to drop, you can click here to catch up with all my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos from the mid-season finale last year. And you can click here to learn about a maybe Spider-Man post-credits scene in Avengers. Danny Elfman is just composing some music for it, so we might see like a teaser, but I don't think they've cast the actor yet. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tonight. Now let's all do the thing.